On page 20, you will see both introductory lessons for the narrative. The top picture displays the movie script. And at the bottom of this page, you will see an example of the Come Alive box. For the movie script activity, you will develop powerful sentence writing. This is important. Too many times, sentences, when we're teaching children how to write more sophisticated sentences filled with robust vocabulary, what tends to happen is that's done as an isolated activity. Children will write powerful sentences. Then when they go to write, and in this case, a story, that bridge from that isolated activity many times is not one they can cross into their own writing. Hence, they still have simple, weak sentences. Movie scripts will help children build powerful sentences within a narrative, not in isolation. Critical for students to actually acquire this skill. What else do movie scripts teach children? Well, many times we introduce what we call robust vocabulary. And when I'm talking about robust vocabulary, I'm talking about high-level adjectives, nouns, verbs, sometimes adverbs, that you have pulled from their focus story in language arts. Those adjective, nouns, verbs, sometimes adverbs, many times students need to master. So you do all these activities so that children actually will master those vocabulary words for their story that you're focusing on. The problem is that we're not trying to teach them those words for that particular story. I mean, yes, when they read, we want them to understand in that context what those words mean. But we are teaching these words so they master them forever. And when they come upon those words again in reading, they know what they mean. When they are writing, they use those words in their writing. So again, we have to not only teach these words, but bridge it to mastery where they utilize those words in their own writing, and also they understand what those words mean in a different context when they're reading them in another situation. So what I do with the vocabulary is we are going to insert previously learned, mastered vocabulary from their focus stories from language arts. Another skill that is developed with movie scripts is the ability to write a story. Your students need to understand what sentences sound like, how to develop transitions that move from one action to another. So when we're writing these sentences and we're developing the idea of what needs to be in a story, one of the skills is transitions. Moving from one action to another, from one scene to another, from one time to another, and understanding how that works as they insert that in their story. As well as creating high levels of language. And you will see that we will be practicing through oral language rehearsal the ability to tell a story. And if you can tell a story, then you're going to be able to write it down. And when I say tell a story, I mean actually say those sophisticated, advanced level sentences so that your students will actually write that way. And they can constantly revise through this oral language piece until they're finally ready to write. Finally, the last element of this activity is mechanics. It is critical that you plan the mechanics on this organizer, because then when they go to write, it makes more sense where those capitals, commas, different types of punctuation need to be in their writing. After showing in the movie script, the next introductory lesson is the Come Alive box. The Come Alive box is an activity that you will do after a language arts focused story. In this case, we were focusing on the story Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, and we're going to write a descriptive piece of writing that you would see at the beginning of a story to make a character come alive, using a character from the story that we were focusing on. So this is a great way to integrate writing into your language arts time using the Come Alive box. And this is going to be an activity that when your students learn the steps of how to write a Come Alive box, they're going to actually use that at the beginning of their own stories to make their characters come alive.